CES is coming up soon. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from the Consumer Technology Association is CEO and author Gary Shapiro. Great to see you once again, Gary.
Fred, great to see you.
Well, CES is just, a month away now, just about. And as always, there is a lot to look forward to. Before we look ahead, let me get your perspective on the most significant trends and accomplishments maybe in the industry over this year.
That's kind of interesting question because some of the things we've had to deal with are some of the uncertain politics and economy that have affect every business. But in terms of consumers, obviously the story of the year is generative AI has made such a difference. It's just embedded in more and more products and more software, and it's moving along, affecting not only consumers but the workplace, and that's definitely a trend that will continue to grow. At the same time, there's a lot of it's a great time to be a consumer in our area because the competition is fierce. The fact that Walmart just finalized the deal with Vizio is out there, and you could go when I go into Walmart or Target or Best Buy, and I look at the price of the products. It's amazing. Like you could get this incredibly beautiful flat screen set that cost so little and is so much better than anything we offered 10 or 20 years ago. It's just we're the deflationary story of the country when everyone's focusing on inflation this past year and how to bring it down. We're the only one that actually did anything about it. Not only it's not a matter of lowering. I mean, it's lowering prices. It's not just slowing the rate of growth. So, I mean, that's an interesting move. The auto industry is obviously the segment has gone through some ups and downs. The American public has gotten all sorts of incentives to buy electric cars, and certainly car manufacturers responded, but it's just not what people thought it would be.
Do you have any thoughts on why people, the general public, has been somewhat reluctant to jump on board with EVs?
Well, I think the numbers are good, but they're just not as high as people thought they would be. I think the market research was based on Tesla owners who were out of the box. They were there first. And Tesla owners, it was a second car. It was kind of a status symbol. It was cool. But now, I mean, the reality of range anxiety is real, and people have it. They want a big car for people with kids or dogs or traveling around. And if you're going to travel, you don't want to worry about where you're going to stop, and we don't have the infrastructure there. And it's difficult in certain environments. The urban environment, for example, with high rise and parking lots, it's very difficult. I try to drive our electric vehicle to the airport, and there's only like 8 spaces to park it in. And if you don't have a space, what happens? You're out of luck. You can't get home. So there are so many issues associated with it. I mean, the good news, I think, is that Trump is going to continue what Obama started and the first Trump administration went forward, which is to push hard on shifting to self-driving, because they do empower people with disabilities. They empower older people. And they also save on and will solve some of our, I think, the Elon Musk Commission could even say, look, if we go to self-driving, we'll cut down the number of deaths and injuries from in like literally the hundreds of thousands, if not the millions, in terms of that we're paying medical bills for. And that could cut a lot out of Medicare and reduce the stress on the shortage of all healthcare personnel. So we have opportunities here to solve big problems. Looking backward is more difficult than me looking forward. I am an optimist, and I think we're going to continue to do great things with our industry that are solving big problems in the world. And, coming up with CES, in the mobility area, there's so many different types of mobility. In the healthcare area, there's so much coming down the way in healthcare technology. COVID taught us that you can do a lot with remote monitoring and with remote telehealth and all these different things and all these different ways of doing things. So I think it's an exciting time to be around. And there's a lot of technologies that are out there, whether it's in agriculture, economics, or agriculture, creating your own food at home, if you will, or nearby, to all these sorts of other things that are clean air and clean water that are going to benefit the world. And you're going to see them all at CES.
Well, tell us a little bit more about some of the trends that we'll be seeing and some of the keynotes that you have lined up. Some really exciting stuff, as always.
Well, the big trend that seems to just increase every year is sustainability. There's no question there's a focus worldwide on that. And there's so much, whether it's water security, air security, food security, uh, dealing with battery technology, where we'll go with that, different types of fuel. For the first time, we have a focus on energy itself at CES. We've never done that. We have a whole set of conferences devoted to the fact that there's an energy shortage out there in the United States and the rest of the world. And what do we do about it? And there's all sorts of alternatives that will be discussed, and the products themselves in cloud computing and elsewhere, how they're becoming more efficient, different opportunities, different fuel sources. And then there's another focus on quantum computing, which is the future. It takes Gen AI and puts it on steroids, and it'll figure out what actually works really quickly. But it does require you to use a lot of electricity, although working faster, there's a trade-off. But even these shift to electric cars and in generative AI use a lot of energy as well. So there you go. In terms of, obviously, people are connecting everything now, whether it's the cars or their homes. The homes are smart. People want homes that have devices in them that do all sorts of things, whether it's security on the outside or monitoring the inside or saving energy or doing all sorts of things. So smart home is a big area. I mentioned digital health before. There's a lot of talk about digital health equity and patient empowerment and all sorts of different things there. And so there's there. In terms of the keynotes themselves, I mean, this is an incredibly all-star lineup. We'll have 1,000 speakers at least. And among the featured keynotes is the CEO of NVIDIA, doesn't speak a lot in the US, Jensen Huang, and he will be featured. Delta's Ed Bastian, CEO. Delta's become the tech airline with all the cool stuff on it. And Ed Bastian will be speaking actually in the Sphere in Las Vegas. No trade shows ever had used the Sphere, and it'll be an incredible presentation. But also going back to our roots, Panasonic was one of our first exhibitors in 1967. And this is their 100th anniversary as actually a company. They started as a bicycle company, and they'll be celebrating their 100th anniversary, as will Ed Bastian and Delta with speaking at CES. But we have, services people enjoy. The CEO of SiriusXM, Jennifer Witz, will be speaking, interviewed by the famous moderator, Ashley Flowers, as part of our C-Space, which is where content and technology and CMOs merge. And the big picture thinkers like Accenture's Julie Sweet, and as well as Volvo Group's Martin Lundstedt. So we have a lot, and of course there's others. We're having AI and PC focus. We have talking about XR and AR and smart glasses, and of course a lot on emerging technologies that are out there. We have a lot of new companies like Oshkosh showing off their vehicles that they supply to a lot of public safety, ambulances, fire trucks, things like that. There's a lot of different companies that are there showing off their technology, because every company is a tech company. You've heard me say that a whole bunch of times, and I'm going to keep saying it.
And with so much, as you said, to do with the AI, the impact on medicine, healthcare, age tech, even, just phenomenal.
Absolutely. And the fact is we're all getting older. There's a shortage of healthcare workers and technologies and to fill the gap. It'll keep people out of hospitals longer, tell them when they have to go back in, which is one of the biggest challenges that hospitals face and healthcare faces. But also, at some point soon, we're going to keep getting, customized cures for bad things that happen to people. And it's based on your genetics. It's based on your blood type, your gender, your age, where you live, what you eat, your family history. And those are things which, I think the US is undertaking this right, because, in China, it's all about there's no privacy, and there's millions of people focused on artificial intelligence and doing things. And China has a good strategy, although they don't care about human rights. Europe, all they care about is human rights. So it's all about privacy. They don't have a lot of innovation. You can't do much with data. I think the US is taking a more, and it's bipartisan, it's a political thing, but I think they're listening as trying to figure out what's best, how you balance privacy concerns versus the need for data that could save lives. And I think they're working it out. I remember the present chair of the Commerce Committee in the House introduced what she called bipartisan AI legislation. And when I read it, I couldn't believe it. It said you can't use any information that breaks people down by gender, race, or anything other suspect category. And I'm thinking, of course you can. Otherwise, you're not going to cure people of diseases. And I spoke to her directly about this. I said, is this what you really want to do? Do you really want to stop healthcare solutions that are customized to a person because they're physically different and genetically different than each other, or what they eat or where they live? And she said, of course, I don't want to do that. So the point is people are listening in Congress, and I think that we'll end up with something good in the next couple of years.
And I know with the CTA, tariffs have always been a concern. Tell us what your thoughts and hopes are.
Well, it's a challenge because we have a new Congress and president. President Trump has figured out in his first term that there is a loophole in the law that he's driving big buses through, that it gives the president some amount of authority. It's unclear to set tariffs, and and he's taking advantage of it. Now he also tries to make promises that he keeps. I mean, the Mexicans did not build the wall, and it was never completed, or did not pay for, I should say. But he's making all sorts of promises and threats about tariffs, which would devastate the U.S. economy. I don't. I think he's a patriotic American. I don't think he wants to devastate the economy. And I think part of this is he just wants certain concessions out of countries. He wants them, he wants to focus on the drug trade from Mexico and illegal immigration and things like that. And I understand that. But, I think he's playing poker, and he has a pair of twos in his hand because he can't do what he says he's going to do without devastating the U.S. economy, without being inflationary. So I know I'm going to be suffering a lot, as is every industry or every, affected, like Walmart and dollar stores and Best Buy and others. It's a Maalox moment. It's one where we're going to suffer in anxiety because he does do things and say things which could happen and be very disruptive and very inflationary. And we don't operate in isolation. We're a very important country, but other companies will retaliate. And he just can't devastate the U.S. economy like that. It would destroy our economy.
And you've always taken this global approach, always with the
Well,
CTA
yeah, I
and
believe that
CES.
to the extent you're trading with a country, you're not fighting with them. On the other hand, I want to respect and say, look, we are so dependent on China for some basic things we need, even like want to talk about electric cars, what's in the batteries, the rare earth minerals. China just announced that they're blocking rare earth minerals sales to the United States. I mean, totally blocking for a number of them. And that's devastating to us. And we can't afford to be in that position as a country. But I'm an American, but I'm a free trader, but I'm not stupid. And we have to look after our national security and economic security needs. And I've been preaching to our industry for at least almost 20 years now that we can't, China's a communist country, and at some point they're going to turn it on us, and we can't be, every company should be looking at getting a source outside China. You just can't depend on China for a whole multitude of reasons. So the countries have listened to our government. I mean, the companies have listened to our government. A lot of them have moved and are moving to Vietnam. They're moving to India. They're moving to Indonesia. They're moving to Mexico. They're moving to the U.S. But it is an absolute myth that the U.S. moving factories to the U.S. First of all, we don't have the workforce that can build them. We don't have the workforce that could build the equipment necessarily. And when we do it, they're going to be highly automated and not create a lot of jobs. So I just think we're self-delusional at this point on reshoring everything to the U.S. And I think Trump will figure that out. Look at the problems we're having just getting in the semiconductor chip plants made in the U.S., where billions and billions and billions of dollars have been thrown at by the Biden administration, and then they layered on top all these childcare rules and all these other rules and all the social things they want, and it's just a freaking disaster. I mean, look at the challenge. Intel's getting billions of dollars, and look at the challenges they're facing. Same thing with electric car efforts by, the Biden administration just announced they're giving away $5 billion to an electric car company as a loan good guarantee. And, it's difficult to fathom, government giving away our kids' money to things where it's industrial policy, which is, I struggle with that one.
So lots of issues to consider and lots of tech to have fun with too, coming up starting January 7th.
Absolutely. The best thing about CES is it really is where the year starts, where the global innovation world comes together. And it's inspiring because it's really not about the United States. It's about the world making the innovators in the world making the world better with technology. And that's what it is. And it's the exhibitors actually will have several thousand of them. They like to talk to each other and meet each other as well as plus all the people, the investors that come from around the world, whether it's Mark Cuban and the Shark Tank people doing tryouts there and walking, or the CEO of Walmart who told me this past show that he walks the show all the time. He looks forward to CES. You never know who you're going to meet there, and you get a lot of feedback if you're a startup. We have a special area for startups, and it's inspiring and it's optimistic and it's fun and it's important. And our job as an organization putting it on is to make sure that we provide the impetus for innovation to occur, the meetings that could occur, because everything right now, you can't be a company alone and do anything. You have to cross license, you have to partner, and you have to do it almost in a global way. And that's important. And our job as a US organization in Washington is to make sure that the US does well in innovation, but that our government doesn't screw up US innovation or screw up the world. And that's what I'll be spending next year on.
Before we wrap up, Gary, wanted to get into your brand new book, Pivot or Die, the latest in a string. You're a prolific author.
Yeah, thanks for asking. This is my fourth book, and it's focused on the fact that people make decisions in life and in business that are critical decisions, and that determines their future. It's not what you think. Personally, the four biggest decisions that you would make that you have to be super, super careful about is whether you commit a crime, whether you do something totally unsafe, uh, if and who you marry, and whether you have kids. Those are four decisions which, for the most part, affect your life seriously. Other decisions are not as important, but you need a way of going to them. And in the business world, everyone thinks big companies have it, but the truth is startups actually have the ability to move quicker and make better decisions quicker without a lot of bureaucracy involved. And that's why big companies are interested in often buying them. And then there's sometimes when you're very successful, you're making decisions that you just think you're really smart, when actually you're just lucky the first time. A lot of one-hit wonders out there. And then there's, the Hail Mary pass, the failure pivot, if you will, as opposed to the success pivot. But, you look at people like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos and some of the decisions they've made, they're very successful, then they shift to something else. How do you get to be that way in business, that you're willing to move? And you have to be able to move quickly. We all learned that in COVID. That was the ultimate pivot. And right now in the United States, with a new government in place next month, all of business has to pivot again, essentially. And you have to figure out what you're doing and how you're affected by it. And so the book is about all those issues. It's about how you could succeed as a leader in business and what you're doing. And there's a lot of discussion about technology examples of companies that pivoted, whether it's the big ones or the ones that have become big. Starting out at CES, Ring, for example, there was a quick pivot there, and now look how successful they are. But there's a lot of smaller company stories as well that became big companies, and how you made those vital decisions. And a lot of them are, by the way, after business failures, that you succeed because you learn from those failures. You learn to be humble, and you learn that when you're creating a business even like you are yourself, the more experience you get, the better you get, and you become less totally confident that you might be after one or two immediate successes, because you're smarter in your confidence. So the book is done quite well. It's been reviewed in a bunch of places with a lot of great reviews, and it's probably the best reaction I've had to any of the books I've written. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Again, it's called Pivot or Die. Congratulations, Gary. On CES, the site is ces.tech. Gary Shapiro, thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you, Fred.